Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Deacon. And guys, today we've got a special guest coming on. Excited to get in, between his ears on some sponsorship relationships and really everything he's got going on. We've got Josh Bertrand coming to the show. He's been on the Serious Angler show quite a few times, but to get him on the Business from the Bass Boat show, we're going to have a premise more around maintaining his sponsorships, as he's done a great job over his career of maintaining relationships with some of these guys in really long-term situations. So, but without further ado, let's see if we can get Josh in the stream here. What's going on, Josh?
How are you?
Dude, I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good. Hey, I haven't heard my last name pronounced like that since I fished the Central Opens, and Chris Bowes called me Bertrand for the whole time I was fishing them. So
great, just wonderful.
Thanks for that. It brought me back to some good memories, man.
Dude, I'm just sitting here. I'm just like, oh, I got to rip it off quick. Oh, there we go. And did it wrong. Fantastic.
No worries. How are you tonight, dude?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. I'm kind of coming off of a sickness, so hopefully my audio is not terrible. But overall, things are good. Colorado's cold. Is it cold down your way? You're kind of near. I mean, well, where you were for the you're at higher elevation for the meet and greet, right?
Yeah. So I live just outside of Phoenix, and this time of year, I'm sure your listeners are all over the country. I better be careful before I complain about weather, ever with Phoenix in the wintertime. It was cold over the holidays for Arizona. The highs were in the lower 50s. Lows were around freezing, but it's warmed back up. Today was like 72 here, and it's just typical winter here in Arizona. So, yeah, I mean, and we'll get into our meet and greet later, I guess, but so we basically camped out this weekend for an event that we're doing for our podcast listeners. And I wanted to do it in like October or November. Fishing's great. Weather's great. One of our other hosts, Rob, is a diehard hunter, and he refuses to commit to anything between October and the last day of January. So we had to do it in January. And I was like, at first I was like, no big deal, no problem. But then as it got closer, I'm like, damn, we've got to actually camp out in January now, so I'm an outdoorsman as far as a fisherman goes, but I'm not like a tough backpacker or hunter or something like that. Like I don't camp overnight in the middle of the winter time very often. So it could have really been bad if we would have had some extra cold weather or rain or something. And we got lucky, and the low was only like in the upper 30s, and it was not windy, no rain, but I was shivering this weekend for sure.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I had listened to the couple episodes right before that event, again on Angler's Happy Hour podcast. And dude, it's always a blast listening to the back and forth between you, Nick, and Rob. And you're right. Nick is always, it seems like, hunting and stuff. So it's funny that he said no event until after January 1.
Yeah. He's like, just don't set anything up because I won't be there. So we waited until I guess he's done hunting. The tags are over January 1st. And so that's what we did. And it worked out great. We'll do it again next year. But yeah, I'm the only one out of all my friends that doesn't hunt. I just don't have the time to do it. Are you a hunter yourself?
I am, man. Yeah, I do quite a bit of waterfowl hunting and then some big game stuff as well. So
I'd love to get into it. I just with the kids and everything like that, I don't have time for another hobby yet. But when they get a little older, I'm going to dive in head first.
Well, you got a great mentor right there as a friend.
Yeah,
so that'd be
sure.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, dude, let's get into a little bit of how the event went, man. It was at Roosevelt Lake in Arizona, correct?
Yeah. So it's like an hour and a half northeast of Phoenix, kind of out of the way a little bit, but it's our favorite lake. And we set it up to be just we didn't over promote it. We just kind of talked about it on the podcast and wanted the diehard listeners to come out. It was our first time hosting an event like that ever. So we didn't want to have too many people there, first off, because I don't know how to control something like that. And we just wanted it to be a good time. We wanted to be able to talk to everybody, meet everybody. We had about 50 people show up, and it was literally, I mean, the show's called Anglers Happy Hour. We called it our listener appreciation event, but it was just basically just a hangout and a happy hour. A lot of people brought their boats up and fished during the day, and then they got off the water. They came, and we had a big giant group site
Okay.
reserved. So basically a big giant parking lot overlooking the lake with a couple of ramadas, some fire pits, some tables and stuff like that. And our buddy Blaine had cooked some awesome pulled pork for everyone, some pulled pork and sides, and we ate some food. Shot the breeze. We had a nice raffle from all of our sponsors. We gave away a bunch of stuff, and then we just hung out by the fire, and a lot of people had some drinks and just hung out all night, man. So it was fun. A good amount of people camped, and it was interesting to see the variety of people that came.
Really?
There were some people that you knew were coming, that you knew were your buddies, or you knew listened to the show, and there was some that it was like, wow, I'm blown away that you even listened to the podcast and you came. So it was cool. We met a bunch of people. It was pretty awesome, man. And I'm sure you get that with your listeners. Like it connects you with a lot of people that you normally might not be connected with in any other scenario. So that was pretty cool. And that's the best thing about podcasting is you actually get to make these connections and interact with people all around the country that you otherwise would never get to connect with. Right. And it's funny too, because people, you don't realize it, but you're on your show, you're talking about your life and your experiences, and people get to know you a little bit, man. And I think the three of us got a real kick out of some of the conversations and stories that we heard when we were up there.
That's awesome. No, I think that's the coolest part too, and I think you guys do a great job on your show of bringing in your personal lives of, hey, what'd you do last weekend, man? Like what happened here, and I think that gives a strong connection. Something that I personally need to do a better job of. I feel like I've gone away from of talking about myself, because what it does is it kind of brings in uh, the listener into your life, and like you said, it just because I listen to a ton of podcasts, it makes me feel like I know that person, right? And you never meet him. It's almost like when you see him in person, you like go to talk to him, you're like, wait a second, like this person doesn't know who I am because been a fan of the show. So did that happen quite a bit to you guys where people are just like, hey, gosh, like, and would just go in and sound like they're a really good friend, but it's just because they knew
Yeah,
you from the show.
I totally understand because I listen to so many podcasts and you feel like you get to know these people. But I think your problem, Adam, is you don't have a big enough ego, dude. You need to see the three of us on our podcast. We got big egos, so we love talking about ourselves. But I
Ego.
think it's hard for you because you're actually a decent human being. That must be what it
No,
is.
that's not it. That's definitely not it. That's awesome, man. Well, how was the fishing? Did you guys catch fish? Did you fish at all? Or were you too busy setting up the event, man?
Yeah, we just set up fishing so that lake, Roosevelt Lake. I can't remember if last time we talked, if you said you'd been there before or not. I know
I
you fished.
haven't, man. I haven't. There's been a lot of guys from Colorado that'll go down and fish that place normally because there's an early derby in the year. But I've never been, man.
Okay.
Haven't been there.
So it's a pretty cool lake, and without going too deep into it, it's a lake. It's the biggest lake we have in central Arizona. It's really where I cut my teeth fishing tournaments, and the water level on a lot of our lakes that fluctuates a lot. That lake, I've seen it as low as 30%, and I've seen it at 100% multiple times. And right now, it's going through a new lake effect. So it had lived down low for pretty long, had a couple good winters, and it filled up. And the fishing has been off the charts for the last year up there as far as numbers and big fish go. It's been amazing. And to be honest, since my tournament season ended, I've been having some. I came home and told my wife, I was like, I won't do too many guide trips. I just want to hang out with the family. 25 guide trips later, after the
In the
fishing
off season.
awesome, I promised her I'd stop for the rest of January. So it's been awesome. But we had some weather last week, and the water came up like 4 or 5 feet. It cooled off, and unfortunately, the fishing stunk for our event. But thankfully, the fishing was like the least important thing. I mean, I think we had maybe 15 guys, 15 boats that came to our event actually go out, and I bet there weren't probably 30 fish caught total. but they didn't care. It wasn't one of those things that we were really worrying about the fishing. So thankfully, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an excuse to get out in January and go meet a bunch of people, talk fishing, and hang out. Man, it sounds like a great time.
Yeah, yeah, and it'll improve out there, but it just happened to be bad luck with fishing after a big water level rise like that. It'll get good again, but right after the water comes up that quick,
Hmm.
you're gonna have a couple tough
Struggling
weeks following that.
for sure. And was this? And I assume I was listening to the episode where you guys had Cliff Perch on, and we're talking about the big shad population in this place, right? Where there's just once those fish get 4 pounds and over, they just have a massive, plentiful food source where they can really grow. Is this
Gizzard shad, yes.
yeah, big gizzards? Yeah,
Yep, yep. So it's interesting to watch their diet go from fish on a lot of lakes really school by size, and I think a huge part of that is the forage they're eating, right? And they're working
sure,
together to go after a certain type of forage. And this winter, when I was on these big giant schools of spoonfish, it was threadfin deal, and we'd be catching 60 fish a day, but you'd be lucky to catch one over 3 pounds. But if you might have picked up a swim bait or something like that and gone shallow, you could catch a big one, but you're going to catch a lot less. So it's interesting. That lake's a real big example of of fish schooling by size and chasing a certain type of bait fish. And if you're in a tournament looking for big fish, you've got to leave those big schools alone because typically you won't catch a big one out of those.
sure, makes a lot of sense. No,
Yeah,
it sounds like a really cool fishery. Glad to hear that it's on the rise. Would love to get down that way, especially like you said, sometime when it's cold up here. That's the place
you
to go.
got it.
Maybe, maybe the next Angler Happy Hour event, man.
Come down, dude. We'll take you anytime.
Sweet, dude. Man, well, with all that, let's get into a little bit about your fishing setup for 2022, man. Where are you at? You've got what, less than a month now, and you're on the road to Texas, aren't you? Or I
Yeah,
guess Louisiana.
it is Louisiana. Yeah, and it's coming up really quick. As a tournament fisherman that fishes all year, the season's really busy and then it slows down in like the end of September, early October typically. November's a nice month, December's a nice month, and then January just gets crazy. The shows are starting. There have been less shows with COVID, but there still are shows. And then you've got all the preparation and everything for the next year. And um, it's one of those things that you try to get ahead of it as much as you can, but product maybe is only able to show up after New Year's. It just is what it is, and January ends up being a crazy month, and this January is no different. Um, it looks like it's going to be a pretty wild one for me, and it's actually due to all the shortages of different products and stuff like that because of COVID. It looks like my craziness of January is going to leak all the way into February and March. So
Oh no,
yeah,
man.
I'm gonna be a madman for the first couple months of the season. I'll still be ready to fish these tournaments, but half of my equipment and gear is going to be 2021 equipment, and half of it's going to be 2022. And hopefully by March, I'll be like in full 2022 mode.
Sure. And you're talking from the perspective, I mean, I've heard from a couple of different anglers now that sponsors had come back and said, keep your boat from 2021 or keep this equipment from 2021 because we're not going to have it to you by then. Is that what you're kind of
Yeah,
referring to? Is just not
exactly.
everything's
It's not
there yet.
anyone's fault. It's not anyone's issue. Like, or not anyone's fault. It just is the way things are going right now, and it's all good. It's 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 a it's a good problem to have. I only have a 2021 Nitro bass boat.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so bad, dude. But I'll make it a couple months with this old 12-month old boat that I've got here. But it's funny because like typically December, January, as a fisherman, I've been doing it for 10 years now. That's what that month is dedicated for, and now it's going to kind of get crammed into March.
During the Derby season.
It's all good, but yeah, we've got a really front loaded schedule for MLF2 for the Bass Pro Tour.
Mhm.
We've got 3 tournaments in February. February is already the shortest month of the year. We've got 3 tournaments that month. And then we have a week and a half off and then Red Crest. So that week and a half is going to be a big week for me. That's the week that I'm going to cram everything into. and be able to fish the rest of the new year on, out of a new boat and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, get everything set up right before the championship. That's really cool.
Yeah, it'd be even cooler if I was doing it now, but it'll still be cool when I do it in that week in March
Cool,
for
man.
sure. And again, I'm not blaming. It's all good. It's all
Yeah.
good. It's the scenario, and pretty much everyone's
Current
in it.
state we're in.
Yep.
Yeah. Dang, man. Well, and I've always said, like, and you're exactly right, right? Like, you could sit here and say, "Oh, man, I have to run a 2021 another like, or whatever it is," right? And, like, everyone takes that differently. But from my perspective, and I've only owned 2 bass boats now, 2 actual bass boats, and for how much time that it goes into prepare and put the graphs on how I want them to be put on and all this kind of stuff, I don't envy having to get a new boat every year necessarily from that
A
perspective.
lot
It's
of
a lot
work.
of work.
It really is, and, again, yeah, they're real first world problems, but it does, like, by the time you get everything set up the way you wanna set it up, it's time to turn it over to someone else, right? And,
Mhm.
I mean, these boats are good for years, and the motors are good for years, and the electronics are good for years, but you wanna be running the most current stuff to be able to showcase the best stuff your sponsors have,
Yep.
and, it's one of those things that, yeah, it takes. I mean, you don't just go pick up your boat and it's tournament ready. It takes days and days of, setting up your electronics, making sure this is perfect, that's perfect. Um, no matter what, no matter how good the boat is, the motor is, how well it's rigged, there's a lot of times a surprise or two waiting for you when you get out of the water the first time.
Right.
And then you've got to get get it wrapped, get the carpet decals done, get the motor officially broken in to where it's. I mean, for like I said, it's typically a month-long process for me. So I'm gonna have to cram it in a week, and that's no big deal. We'll make it work, but that's just that it's dealing with the world the way it is today, just like everybody else.
Sure, man. Exactly. Well, that's kind of a good segue talking about Nitro Boats and Bass Pro Shops and that whole situation for you, man. I mean, that has been you have run a Nitro your entire career, right? Am I off on that?
No, you're right, and it's pretty crazy. It goes even
Yeah.
a lot further than bro. It's pretty wild. I
Really?
So yep, when I was a teenager, really getting into bass fishing,
Hmm.
our family had an aluminum boat, and I grew up fishing out of an aluminum boat, and our very first bass boat was we bought a used 1994 Nitro when I was like 16, and it was the first real bass boat I ever had. And dude, it's all I've ever had since then. I got onto the local Nitro state team. I was 16 years old. My first job was detailing boats and rigging boats at the local Nitro dealership.
No way.
16, 17, 18. Yep. And I was terrible mechanically, man. I messed up enough boats, I think, that they eventually moved me into sales, and I sold Nitro boats for about a year, and then
Okay.
I got into like full time guiding and fishing from that. But literally, I'm 33 now, and my connection with Nitro boats and Bass Pro goes all the way back to when I was 16.
Wow. That is awesome. That is a
Sure.
legitimate long-standing relationship.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty awesome, man. I mean, I remember opening up the Bass Pro catalogs, before that, and just dreaming about these boats. And I remember all the boat models that I would drool over, and it's pretty awesome, man. I'm pretty lucky to be able to fish out of this literally the same boats that I dreamt about looking through the Bass Pro catalog as a kid.
it's very cool, man. Well, and maybe we can do a little bit of a deep dive on, and this is what I kind of want to get into is maybe did that relationship for you stem from that initial employment and situation with that, or was that further down the road, or where did that kind of all start for you?
It definitely, I would say that started it, and it probably played into it a lot.
Okay.
Everything in life is all about timing, right? And things just kind of worked out the way they did to, all these different nitros I've been in. Um, I would say, yeah, I would say me personally, after all those experiences at a young age and wanting to be in a nitro boat, watching Kevin Van Dam fish out of a nitro boat, um, having a nitro dealership close to where I lived,
Mm.
knowing some of the guys that were on the nitro team that kind of helped me get into the front door, that all led to like this long lasting relationship. But I mean, it really started at that state team level where I mean, we just had a used nitro boat, and I was a kid, and a friend of mine, he's a friend of mine now, Matt Shura. He saw like the dedication I had as a kid. Matt is a really good Arizona angler, Arizona fisherman. He was on the nitro state team, and you know, he would bring me to the state team meetings and stuff like that, help me get the job at the dealership. And you know, it was time to I was guiding, fishing full time at 18, 19. I was like, I went to get my own first nitro boat myself, you know,
Yeah.
that I was going to buy myself. And I did it through the Arizona Nitro State team. So the state team deal is still a really big deal countrywide for nitro and tracker boats.
Mm.
And you know, a lot of great fishermen on the state teams around the country, and it's a really beneficial deal for nitro because these guys are good ambassadors for the brand. They work the boat shows, they talk the products up all year long, and in return they they get a little bit of a discount buying that boat. Not necessarily what a professional angler will get,
Sure.
but a good deal on a boat. And that's where it started for me. And
Okay.
yeah, it's blossomed all the way to now. I mean, I've probably had a dozen of them.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. And like you said, timing, man, like with everything, it's this seed got planted in your head because of this guy. And then, oh, well, I watched Kevin fish out of this. It sounds like there was no other way you were going to go to a different boat. Like especially as
Totally.
you climbed the ranks, it was nitro. That was what you were going to do.
And hey, also, it's one of those things too where, and again, I'm not going to act like I haven't been lucky in some of these. Just having a good tournament at the right time or meeting the right person at the right time. A lot of that boils down to luck, and Nitro is no different than anyone else with my sponsors. But like, um, what lining yourself with companies that you do want to be with forever is a really big deal too. And in a couple of these cases, and that's one. For example, it's a company that I mean, Kevin Van Dam is the ultimate example. He's the best fisherman in the world, has
Yep.
been for the last 20, 30 years, and he's fishing out of a nitro. It's like, how can you top that, right? Like if the best dude is fishing out of that boat, that's what I want to be doing. I
Sure.
don't know if I'll ever be Kevin Van Dam, and I'm pretty sure now I'm not going to be. But if he's fishing out of a nitro, I want to also.
Sure. Sure. Dude, that's awesome. And yeah, like as far as your brands, man, and I'm just looking at a picture of your jersey here, like you've been someone who like stuff doesn't change. I mean, do you have any like there's it seems to me like there's definitely a lot of anglers where one sponsor never really changes. And there's a lot of anglers where sponsors are pretty consistent. And then there's some anglers where it's flip-flopping and you see stuff changing all the time. Um, what has kind of been your philosophy, or do you have anything to really point to and say, look, this is why I've been able to kind of maintain some of these relationships, or what's your kind of thoughts there?
It's a good question, and it's really funny, dude, because I'm going into my 10th year fishing like full time. I fished 6 years on the elites, and now this is going to be my 4th year at MLF. So I would consider it my 10th year fishing professional tournaments. And yeah,
Mhm.
I've been lucky to I've got like 6 or 7 or 8 sponsors that I've had since I started. And
That's
it's
awesome.
hard to believe, especially some of the non-endemic companies that like the endemic sponsors, they can always change, but you see them last a little bit longer at times. The non-endemic companies, a lot of times are like, they might be good for a year or two, and then that's it. And I've been lucky to have some of these relationships for a long time. And I'm obviously, I feel super lucky, super thankful. I think a lot of it is just that. It's just luck and them being the right companies. Um, I try to work hard no matter what, no matter if I'm fishing well or not fishing so well. I'm always trying to be working hard for the companies. But
Mm.
I don't know, man. If you have to, when I think about it, I would say if you're an angler that's on the front side of that curve and is looking for companies and wants to be aligned with them for a long time, maybe some of the reasons where I started a little bit slow as far as I wasn't asking for the farm right off the bat.
Mhm.
I was willing to take a little bit less to get aligned with a company that I wanted to be with for a long time. And I'm slowly, have worked my way up the ladder. I didn't, maybe I would have, if I would have shopped around, I could have made a little bit more in the short term from someone else, but I'd be happy having to shop for another partner again the next year. Um, even up to this point, I try to keep things, fair on both sides. I try not to ask too much, and I try to, um, try to keep things fair on all sides. But I think a lot of it is just luck, and of course the personal relation. Good luck doing your job, working hard. You've got to catch some fish. Um, you've got to be showing that you're working hard on all fronts, and you know, and I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint. I hope it continues every year. I'm like, you know, when am I? When is this going to change? And it just continues to go. So knock on wood, it continues for a lot longer.
That's awesome. I mean, and like the biggest thing that I hear from you there is that you're willing to play the long game, right? Like you're looking at these situations as I'm not looking for the immediate paycheck. And I think that this applies outside of the fishing world too, that in a long-term situation, you can have a lot more of a fruitful career or have that paycheck be way higher later in your life if people are willing to take a step back and be realistic about where they are and learn from that relationship in the beginning and watch it kind of grow. And sounds like that's exactly kind of more of your thought process there.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right. It makes a lot of sense, especially now as 33 years old listening to it. At 23, I probably wasn't smart enough to have that foresight. I probably got lucky. But the way you explained it there, it sounds really smart. And I do think you're totally spot on, man.
Yeah, that's I mean, and the non-endemic side is really fascinating to me. Like you said, we've seen so many different non-endemic sponsors, and it seems to me when it's almost like a non-endemic comes into the industry and takes on a team like the Crown Royal, right, or like Walmart or these major brands come in and they throw a bunch of money at a group of guys or at an organization, and then like it's a very quick burn relationship and then it changes, right? And then that guy's like, oh my gosh, like I had a major title sponsor that was paying all my bills and now I have to find another one. And I just can't imagine that stress, man.
Yeah, it's one of those that like, and even over the years, I've had a couple things come at me where it was like, you might have a chance here to make something work and make a lot right now, but you're going to have to push this stuff aside.
Mm.
And I've actually just been like, it sounds awesome. It's very tempting, but I'm going to keep what I got. I've got some great relationships going. I'm not going to put them to side and insult them or not insult them, but like just kind of, I'm not going to push them down the totem pole to bring someone in who it literally could just be a 1 year deal. And then, I'm starting from scratch again. It's sometimes those things work out really, really well, but you got to go with your gut on that. And if it doesn't feel right, then it's probably not the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think too, um, if you were to like the fishing industry small enough and just in general, if you're gonna burn a bridge, man, there's no way you can go back to that sponsor and say, well, that guy didn't work out. You mind if we do what we did before?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the truth. Is you should never burn a bridge in general. Like, I mean, there are times when business is business. And I've been in a couple scenarios where I had to do something because it made sense. And, I've explained it like that to the sponsor I was having to walk away from.
Hmm.
And, they've been nice enough to be like, well, if you ever need us, let us know. And hopefully, um, I handled those things the right way. And hopefully if that situation ever arose, that would be how it would work out. But,
Yeah.
yeah, if you do things the right way in that scenario, you might end up okay if things don't work out on the other side. But, um, it's like a big game of chess, man. But, no matter what, it's just the biggest thing is trying to work with companies who it feels right to you and it feels good to you, products that you want to support, products that you believe in, people that you want to work with. And, and it's a lot easier to maintain those relationships than having to force something that doesn't feel right or isn't right to you.
Yeah, dude, I think the people's a big side of that. I think that is a good point, and I don't think that's talked about enough with anglers. Is if you're with a group of guys with an organization where the person that your contact is, or your team, or whoever you're working with, are people that you like and be around, that's huge. That makes your life so much better.
You're totally right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome to be able to, you know, if you have an issue, just be able to not even think twice and pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, dude, what the heck is what's up with this?" Or like, "Hey, we need this," or "We gotta, what's going on with this," rather than like, really don't want to make that guy mad. So how should I do this tactfully? Like it's
Yeah,
great to be working with people that are easy to work with, that you get along with, and honesty is really important, man. You got to be able to be honest on both fronts, and you want them to be comfortable with you, just like you're comfortable with them, and that comes with time. But and hey, in the fishing industry, it's not always the luxury that you have because people change positions, people change jobs, and
sure.
we've all seen it with all these different companies. So it's not always a luxury, but man, is it nice when you really get along with the people you're working with for sure.
Yeah, and well, with some of that, with some of your relationships that have been a 10-year situation, uh, has that, I mean, do positions change often enough to where you've worked with like completely all new guys now, or some of those guys the same? Like, does that stuff move pretty quick?
Yeah, with the bigger companies, it's much more of a revolving wheel. The smaller
Mm,
companies, it's a lot of times it's not, but with the bigger companies, for sure, man. And there's just sometimes it's easier than others, but um, right now I feel like everything's in a really good place as far as the companies I'm working with. The fishing industry is doing really well in general. Right
sure.
now, fishing industry is doing great. Other than just having trouble getting product, the sales are off the charts. More people are fishing, so the morale is really good with a lot of these companies. But yeah, over the years, I could actually look back at a few of the companies I've worked with, and like, yeah, over 10 years, I might have had 3 or 4 different bosses
Wow.
or people I reported to with the same company for sure.
Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm. Yeah, so there's definitely some turnover there. I got you.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, as far as your non-endemics go, so you're still with Smoky Mountain Herbal Snuff.
Yep.
Has that been someone from the beginning? I feel like I've seen them on your jersey forever, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, they are. And you know, I heard a commercial on Sirius XM 10 years ago,
Okay.
and I was like, wow, that sounds like a perfect company to get into fishing because so many folks in the
Huge.
outdoors through tobacco, and this is an alternative. You use this stuff to get off tobacco, to quit chewing tobacco. And I called him up and emailed him, and what do you know, man, the CFO loved bass fishing. And that at least gave me an opportunity to have a conversation, right? He wasn't like, okay, yeah, here, come take this money. But it was
Sure.
like, well, at least hear this kid out because, hey, that sounds interesting, and it does sound like a good market for us. And yeah, it's worked out great. And those guys they're like family to me now. And they're a great company. They're based out of Texas. And man, I've been thankful to have them on board for a long time. They They sponsor Chipper Jones,
Wow.
Randy White, and Matt Duff. He's a hunter. And they also
Okay.
sponsor Major League Fishing as a league. But I want to do something with Chipper Jones, man. I was the biggest Chipper Jones fan as a kid growing up. I loved baseball,
Yeah.
and dude, I'd be if I ever got to fish with Chipper Jones, I'd be starstruck. I need to set something up to do
Dude,
that.
yeah, I feel like 10 years or however long with the brand, man, you've had enough relationship at this point. You gotta swing some weight a little bit.
Yeah, they should give me a cell phone number. I should ask.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what you should do. What kinda, baseball player, like, what doesn't wanna come fish, man? I mean, like,
Oh
there's so many
yeah, well,
guys
he's
that play
a hunter.
baseball that just
I don't know if you ever watched baseball or watched Chipper when he played, but yeah, he was notorious for having a big chew, So this stuff's been great for him. But I'd love to go fishing with him one day.
that's freaking awesome, dude. Yeah, man, I think the biggest thing there that I picked up was, like, you had like you said, it didn't give you the relationship. It wasn't handed to you, right? You went looking for it. But what got you in the door, there always has to be some way to get into the door. And what got you in the door was the guy knew bass fishing, right? The
Yeah,
CFO knew bass fishing. Gives you a chance anyway. It gives you a chance to
it's
talk and connect.
you're totally right. Otherwise, I mean, I've had plenty of embarrassing phone calls where I didn't know. I mean, dude, especially when I was starting, I didn't know anything about marketing,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'd call these CFOs or people that were in these positions and marketing directors and stuff, and literally sounded like an idiot, because I didn't know what I was talking about. But the fact that he did like fishing, at least he had a little bit of a soft spot for me and got me in the door, and he helped me along the way. This gentleman named Dan over at Smokey Mountain, he helped me along the way, and I'm really appreciative for it for sure.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, were you a guy, especially when you were just starting out, were you taking a bunch of no's? Were you knocking on a bunch of doors, or did you get your couple of wins and said, "Look, I'm locked in with these guys"? I mean, was it a tough battle for you in the beginning?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to fish for a living at a pretty young age, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. If I was going to be a full time guide, if I was going to fish tournaments. I wanted to fish tournaments. That's what I loved. I just didn't know how feasible it would be for me. And yeah, man, I mean, I was starting from an early age, and yeah, I took a lot of no's for sure. And again, like I said, I had a lot of I mean, I had a lot of I learned by trial and error. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a degree in marketing or anything like that, and I didn't really early on have anyone like guiding me. And luckily I met a few people that really helped me out along the way, and they definitely deserve a lot of credit as far as anything that worked out for me. A lot of it was information I pulled from them and used myself. That was really helpful. But um, yeah, no doubt about it, especially early on. And even after, the first year I had qualified for the Elite Series, and I qualified in 2012. Um, it didn't come as easily as I expected the next year to get sponsorship. And I just thought, hey, since you made the show, it's all gonna come easy now. And it
Mm.
took a year of getting out there and proving myself before things became a little bit easier inside the fishing industry. And it didn't change things outside the fishing industry a ton, but it really helped with my sponsors inside the fishing industry. And
Mm.
everything else has kind of fallen in line since then a little bit. But now it's really, you're always looking for new sponsors or partners or opportunities. You're always looking. But my big thing, over the last handful of years has been really preserving and growing the relationships I've got, trying to help the brands out as much as I can. And because they are the brands that I want to be with. It's not like I'm trying to climb up the ladder to a different company. Like I'm where I want to be. I just need to try to do what I can to preserve it and strengthen it. And hey, I've done some of that, and there's also some of it that I'm still working on doing and need to improve on for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, everyone's a work in progress for sure, man. But no, I think that's exactly right, dude. Like that's why I think this was a great episode topic with you. Is that your goals are to kind of maintain some of those relationships, and I think that's a big deal, and plays clearly a big role in consistency and everything too. Just knowing kind of where your income's coming every year and all that. It's all a big deal, and it makes everyone happy, including yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, it's you know, it's I guess in sales they say it's a lot better for you to try to keep a customer than to try to find a new customer, right? Like
Yeah,
it's much
I
more
like
beneficial.
that.
And if you've got a great partner, you know, you should be putting all your effort into trying to do what you can to make that partner happy and keep that relationship going, forever for sure.
I like that, dude. That's a good connection with bass fishing.
No doubt
That's for
about it.
sure. That's awesome. Well, dude, we'll kind of get into wrapping some things up here. I'm just curious from a personal perspective, what are you most excited for in 2022? Are you for the 22 season on I guess from a schedule standpoint or anything, man? What's it going to be? What are you most excited for going into 2022?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about. Obviously, it's another year of fishing, and we've got a great fishing wise. We've got a great schedule laid out. Um, I feel like I've last 2 years ago I had a pretty good year. I had a couple chances to win tournaments, and just a good year. This past year was very run of the mill for me. I ended up in a decent spot in points. I made red crest, I made heavy hitters, but I never had a chance to win a tournament. I never hit a home run. And it's real easy to sit here and say, "Hey, I'm going to try to hit some home runs and win a tournament this year." But it's just going to be it's a really important year for me to be really sharp and try to and really try to do that. I mean, I've got no excuses as far as last year. I had a couple tournaments where I was on fish, but little dumb things on my part, not being sharp, not being fully prepared, may have cost me a top 10 finish. And anytime you get in the top 10, it gives you a chance. You've got a chance to win. So this year, I mean, I'm putting I wouldn't say a lot of pressure on myself, but I'm expecting a lot, and I'm really committed to trying to be just have no excuses and really give myself a chance at hitting a couple home runs, and that's the goal. I mean, it's great to have a solid year, cash checks, make the championship. That's cool. That keeps you in the game, but nothing is more exciting or better than having really high finishes and having a chance to win. So I really really no matter what be great to have a consistent year, but I really really want to have a couple big tournaments. That's my goal.
I like it, man. Putting yourself in a position to win. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, easier said than done, right? We'll see, but that's the goal, anyways,
That's the
man.
goal. I
Yep.
like it. Well, man, I end all the business from the bass boat shows with your three biggest, so biggest smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass, and where you were when you caught them,
Nice. Well, so I'll
if
start
you
with
can
the
say,
one.
if it's not some secret place.
No, yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll start with the one that's obvious. It's a largemouth, and I caught this thing. It really is one of the fish that got me hooked in fit on fishing. I was like 12 or 13 years old. I caught a 12-pound largemouth, a legit 12. It was weighed on a certified scale in the marina. Caught it on a topwater on right after Thanksgiving. It was one of those deals where like I would never throw a topwater on that lake that late in the year
Yeah.
now, but it worked for me once. So that got me hooked on fishing. And dude, this sounds kind of dumb, but the smallmouth and spot,
Yeah.
no idea. I've never, like I don't. I'm one of those guys that rarely brings a scale with me in the boat, and I'm sure one of my biggest smallmouth is just somewhere pre-fishing. I mean, I can think of a few. One on Lake Erie. Um, I mean, I have no idea, dude. I mean, it's somewhere between 6 and 7 pounds, but I have no idea how
Yeah.
big. It might be 6.0 or it might be 6.9. I'd like to say 6.9, but I doubt it. But I really don't know. And then a spot, same thing. I don't know how big. So in Arizona, one funny misconception is a lot of people think Arizona has spots, and it has no spots.
I would have
California
never guessed that.
spotted bass, right? California is loaded with spotted bass, but I don't get to fish for them locally, especially on those big spotted bass lakes like they have up in Northern California. So my biggest would be, I remember the fish. I caught it on a football jig out of a brush pile. I was practicing for a classic in 2018, no, 2017, no, 2018. And it was a big one, but it wasn't crazy, man. It was probably about a 5 pounder or something like that.
Gotcha.
It was
Yeah.
a giant spot, but it's
Big
nothing
spot.
like Cody Meyer, some of these guys out west.
California. Yeah. Yeah. But it's still, I mean, as a big spot, but that's, and I think we talked a little bit on the Serious Angler show, as far as not being, spots in Arizona, which is just absurd to me because in Colorado on one of our desert lakes on Pueblo Reservoir, they have them in there and it's as deserty. I mean, dude, it looks like mead. It looks like any other desert lake. And, they do well, man. I mean, like they thrive and they're fun and they go and disappear and you got to go chase them out deep. And it's I'm sure they do well, on some of your lakes, but that's interesting. The Arizona parks or you guys don't have any spots.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just it. I mean, I'm glad to hear they do well there because I think they would do well here. They just have never been introduced, and also like it's 90% largemouth here. Like we have some smallmouth fishing where I live,
Mhm.
but it's just 90% largemouth. So I'd love to see some spots. Um, It's amazing. The bucket biologists, fishermen have never made the
Yeah.
introduction, but there aren't even any close, right? I mean, it's a long way, like to drive from here. You're probably the closest spotted bass where you live, dude, and it's not
Uh-oh.
that close. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to see it one day.
That would be cool. Well, and I mean too, like, and I think right, like spotted bass being normally in clear water and sight feeders to some extent, like I think that they would do well in those
They
places
would kill.
because
They would do awesome, dude. Yep.
that's cool. No, there
Yeah.
and yeah, it'd be interesting one day to see something like because like I mean on like Havasu, dude, those smallmouth are massive. They get big and they get mean and it's wicked and that's I could see them doing well there or on a lot of different clear water
Yeah, we've got some
fisheries.
lakes that even get a lot deeper, and they would. I think they would be great at that. We've got a couple lakes where the stripers are
Mm,
too dominant. And I feel like the spotted bass would help combat the stripers and knock them down a little bit, put them in their place. But,
yeah,
um, it's they haven't been introduced, but maybe one day.
maybe one day, like you
Yeah,
said, maybe a bucket biologist or something.
yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah, not
probably
me.
shouldn't
I
say
didn't.
that.
Nope, nope. I said it, not me.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't me. Well, Josh, man, I appreciate you taking the time out, man. Where can guys follow along? Again, you can go ahead and say anything you want as far as yourself personally, as well as your show, man. Again, big listener. I would like to next year. I need to figure out on the schedule. Let me know if the Angler Happy Hours meetup is in January again or when it is, because I'd like to figure out how to make it down there, man. It's not that
Hey,
far.
dude, that's awesome. Well, we'd love to have you, man, because we love listening to you guys as well. Yeah, so I mean, for me, just easy Facebook, Instagram. It's at Josh Bertrand Fishing, and then yeah, if you like podcasts, which clearly you do, you're listening to this one. Our podcast is called Anglers Happy Hour, and I love how you've got a different spin on your show, man. It's really unique, and I feel like ours is a little bit different too.
Yeah.
It we do talk some nuts and bolts fishing. We have some pretty legit guests on at times and ask them fishing questions, but just as often we have them on and ask them, just about regular everyday stuff. And the show's called Anglers Happy Hour because it's myself and two of my best buddies, and um, it's literally just like sitting down at dinner or at the bar after fishing all day and just shooting the breeze. So pretty random topics on the show, but um, we always have a good time, and we always try to touch on fishing a little bit. So, the guys I do it with, a couple of them are pretty funny, and we always try to at least sprinkle one or two nuggets of knowledge into the show. If you at least make it to the end.
Dude, you're dead on. It's a lot of laughs and a lot of knowledge as well. There's some juice, and then there's some times where I just find myself like cracking up, and my girlfriend's like, "What are you laughing about?" I'm like, "Nah, it's a podcast. Just let it
Nick,
go."
Nick is quite the comedian, man. His life is an absolute debacle, and I love him to death.
Yeah. I just love it too because he doesn't even like it's always buying something that breaks or just and it's always like his own fault. You know what I mean? And he just
Exactly.
talks about
I'll
it.
just dude, he bought a new F-150 and,
New,
ev
like new, like newer.
like a year old, right? And
Okay, yeah, yeah.
everyone that came to our meet and greet was so disappointed in him for having
Oh,
a new reliable vehicle. Like, they were hoping to see one of his, like, crappy vehicles that he broke down on the way up to the lake, and, they're like, "Dude, that's like the most plain Jane, run of the mill, reliable truck you could get. Like, thanks a lot, Nick."
sellout, dude. What a
Yeah,
sellout.
exactly. But no, he's still got his piles of crap. That's for sure.
That's good. Well, I guess good that he's got a reliable vehicle, but man, he should have read the crowd, man. He
I
should have
know.
pulled
Yeah,
up
he
with something else.
bummed everyone out. What a disappointment.
What a disappointment. Well, Josh, man, thanks for taking the time out, man, for coming on the show, and we'll have to connect again. I'm gonna try. I'd like to make Red Crest this year. We'll see if I
Awesome.
make that happen. But if not, man, we should connect on the road sometime, or I'll get down your way for sure.
Yep. Hey, you got an open spot on my boat any day, man. So I'd love to do that. Heck yeah.
Awesome. All right, Josh. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Adam. I'll talk to you soon, dude.
See ya.